What I remember about Willem at that time when I was a student was he had broken away from his academic training and really had become a major innovator. What he was able to do with constant evolution, of materials and techniques. An abstraction, but it was a very kind of European abstraction in that there was very beautiful, very sensitive tonal arrangements and sort of impossibly lovely veils of color flowing into each other.
Color field work, whether it's Washington Color School or color field in general, is something that was happening in the air across the globe. It was happening everywhere. It was conclusions that lots of artists were coming to in their studios. And in a lot of cases, these artists were working with new materials, and that new material is an important aspect of what made color field happen. And in a lot of ways, what was happening with the color school to a greater degree than an influence by any particular artist was the advent of the use of this kind of material, acrylic paint. You were no longer using a solvent, you were no longer using a medium that took days to dry, you were no longer using a medium in which there was a natural gravitation towards a sense of impasto, dragging the brush through this thick, buttery paint. You could pour, you could stain, you could do those sorts of things. And I think the color school guys and field painters in general were looking at, let's be relieved of content. Let's make experiences which, and to a certain degree, have a kind of freedom to them, that we experience these things as paintings themselves before us because they are painted. The Looper, more than any of the other color field painters other than maybe Lewis, experimented more directly in the use of the acrylic paint and what it would do. And this idea that you could pour and let it dry, wet the canvas and pour back into it. You could have almost a kind of sense of time passing in the way the painting was made. You'll notice in some of the Looper paintings, there's a last moment. There's a pour, and then there's a flick of paint, and there are little dots of paint that'll move across the canvas and bleed. So you have this different planar quality. You'll have the surface, you'll have the texture, you'll have the staining and the illusion. The interesting thing about looking at the Looper paintings is that they were all painted stretched, and often they were actually stripped along the edges so that he was really dealing with that flat surface of the painting. He wasn't dealing with the edge. One of the things that starts to occur after 1968, as it always happens with artists, they get restless with their ideas. And then about 1973, he starts to do more process paintings and really change the look of his work. So you get these more geometric kind of field paintings. And we have a tendency to think that what makes the environment for artists is the artist's ideas. And that's certainly true, but it is only part of the story. It is those things around the artist that make up the environment.
I approached Willem about doing a major retrospective to take an artist like Willem, who's been so important to Washington, and show him in some depth and really try to show the public what I had been seeing for the last 35 years. The best thing was I was able to work with him to put together the exhibition so that it really reflected his thoughts about his career, not just mine, but really his own thoughts. The arc of his career was really a wonderful one, that there was a trajectory there that took him a great distance. Willem was an artist, and he wasn't going to stand pat. He really had to follow his muse, and he was able to do that.